Hi everybody, Happy Easter!
Happy Easter.
Or April Fool's Day, whatever you celebrate on this Sunday in April.
Yes. Could be just doing your laundry.
I know.
I'm Scott.
I'm John.
And we're married.
Yeah.
And this is the SweetTeaNoShade Knitting Podcast.
Yes.
This is not a Antiques Roadshow podcast.
It is not.
Although, we have a beautiful teapot with us.
Right, this was first anniversary.
Yeah, we decided to do
to follow the
traditions of
anniversary gift giving, and this is a China.
Which was second year?
Second year.
What was first year?
Paper? Oh, right, you got me the book. Okay.
Yeah.
So last year was China or cloth?
Yes.
And so this is a Waterford teapot. Look, it's so beautiful.
So we are dressed up because we went to brunch with our friend Charles, who always coordinates Easter brunch. We went to the Afton House Inn in Afton, Minnesota.
Which is why I'm dressed like a gay professor. Yes.
And this bow tie I did not buy with this shirt. Okay, no, I'm going to be checking out my bow tie the whole time, but I didn't buy it with this shirt, but it's like exactly the right color, and it's got this blue in it. So John's just got pattern explosion going
I know.
on
So
there.
I don't know if you can see, but this is like blue flowers with blue flowers.
You gotta. It's backwards. You gotta straighten. See what I mean?
Oh my
it's
god!
Like, it's
I can't.
backwards.
This is like ah.
All right, so it is April 1st, and what's next weekend? Are you sure it's next weekend?
Yes.
It's not 2 weekends from now?
I'm pretty sure it's the 4th to the 8th. Okay.
Guess what's next weekend? It's the Minnesota Shop Hop.
Sock Hop.
John keeps calling it Sock Hop. It's the Shop Hop, which we're super excited about. So, okay, I've got a paid-for pattern that I'm like laying there. I don't think anybody could see that.
You know, it's not in the
Yeah. Yeah. So we're super excited about that.
Why?
Well, so April 30th. April 30th is our 1-year anniversary of doing a podcast.
Podcaversary?
Podiversary is how it's pronounced.
Really?
Yes.
Is that actually a word for that?
That's a word, yes. It's a podiversary.
Podiversary.
But I didn't get permission to mention this, but I can't imagine it's a big thing to mention it. But we were asked, I shouldn't say. Actually, no, it was specifically me, but it was because of a conversation. Anyway, it's us. We are writing an article for the Bakery Bears magazine for their, what are they called? Patreons? It's from their Patreons. Anyway, their patrons, the magazine / newsletter that they put out, which is actually, have you seen it? Have I shown it to you? It's amazing. Anyway, I was asked to write an article for that.
Oh my god.
And so I am going to do an article about comparing and contrasting my first Minnesota Shop Hop with my one this year. What's so funny?
So do you remember in high school where it's like...
Compare and contrast us.
Right. In some ways, Huckleberry Finn is much like The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, but in other ways, it's very different.
Brave New World. I'm going to compare and contrast the similarities and differences between the Brave New World and 1984. That was actually my senior paper.
I know.
Have I brought that up like
before,
19 times? Yeah, it's because I'm obsessed with those. Anyway, so yeah, I don't really know. I mean, I've not done this before. I don't really know much about how this works, but he asked me to do it, and I'm like, well, heck yeah, I'll do it. So.
Well, it's super fun because we went on the Shop Hop right before we started this, right? And also, the cool thing is, having gone on the Shop Hop last year when we were both relatively new to the insanity of knitting, and now where we feel like we've drunk all the Kool-Aid.
Now we're like, okay,
right.
We have to like have a plan and a strategy so we don't spend $2,000.
Well, I think last year I was like podcasting.
You were like Shop Hop,
Sock Hop.
Shop Hop, podcasting. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And I was like, you don't know.
Right.
So, yeah, so then John went, so I went 2 days on the shop hop last year and completed all the stores because it's like 12 or
13,
yeah. And so I did all of them over the 2 days. John, I did the first day by myself, part of the day, and then my friend Sonia came with me for part of the day, and then I brought John with me the second day, and I think you were pretty excited after that.
It was super fun.
Bit in the bug. Remember that double knitting thing that you were gonna do?
that morphed into a scarf that I still haven't finished.
Yeah, Sonia and I have been talking about all the stuff all the yarn that we bought and all the because I'm sure this is probably common for all the shop hops that they do around the world, but each store, at least in the Minnesota shop hop, each store has a custom colorway of yarn that's done that you can buy, and then they also have a pattern that you can buy.
Oh yeah,
no, you don't buy. You get it for free if you donate at the highest level or whatever.
Which one was it Twisted Stitch?
I don't even.
They had the labyrinth hat. The hat that had the owl on it.
Yeah, but it wasn't a labyrinth. That labyrinth was just the whatever.
Whatever. Yeah. So I have the yarn for that and the pattern for that, and have not.
Yeah. Anyway, we were talking about all the stuff that we were like, oh, we're gonna knit this, I bought like 3 kits for things that I still haven't knit or whatever. But I'm gonna do them eventually. The thing is, I'm 40. John's a couple of years older than me, which I like to point out as many times as I can. And you know what's going to happen? People are going to be like, oh, John looks younger than Scott. Scott looks so old. That's what people always say.
That sounds like your inner saboteur talking.
Negative self-talk.
It's super tires.
Okay, what was I talking about?
You're talking about why did you? So how did that come from the sock hop? I want to hear like the wheels in your crazy
because
head.
I'm 40. Oh, I remember. Okay, because what people use as an excuse to spend money on yarn is they're like, when I retire and I don't have the same income, I'll have all this yarn that I can use to knit and won't have to buy any.
We're a little ways from retiring.
We're like 25 years from retiring, so we could buy everything we want. So, anyway.
Yeah.
That
when we move to the assisted living, we're going to have a separate unit for our yarn.
Right. So anyway, that's next weekend, and we're super excited about that.
And the plan is, my plan is I have 2, maybe 1 pattern, 2, 4. I'm going to shop for specific patterns. So I have 1 pattern for sure that I'm going to shop for, and then another pattern I might shop for too. And that's all I'm allowed to buy. I mean...
Good luck with that.
It's a plan.
Yeah. Last year there was this cashmere blend yarn that I wanted so badly, but I didn't buy it. Because it was like $1 million a skein, but... Yeah. So anyway, so we're going to do that and talk about that, and we're planning to do a video just around the shop hop.
Right. It'll be just us driving from each one, because those are the most fun.
Yeah. All right. So... we're going to talk about the stuff that we're working on. We're going to talk about our knit-along that we've got going on. We're going to talk about some topics that I keep meaning to bring up on the podcast and forgetting. And we'll just see how it goes.
Sounds good.
So I have 2 projects to show. How many do you have?
I have 1 finished object that's going to be just photos.
Okay. How many projects do you have to show? Knitting and or finished and working in progress. 3. Okay, so then you start, because I only have 2.
Okay, so this is going to be one with like picture.
Insert here.
Because I finished the first of my cowls for the cowl. So very, very exciting. It was called oh dear. Well, we'll put it on. It's by Lehto.
I just looked at this.
Yeah. I can't remember.
I just looked at it.
It's like one word.
Like the ripply or
no
patterny, textury.
Yeah.
Cowl. Okay, keep going.
Rhythm. The Rhythm Cowl by Lehto. And I used a skein of yarn that we bought at the Blackberry Mills place in Wisconsin, and See, isn't that beautiful?
We don't see it, but you.
We don't see it. So anyway,
it was a gift. That's why you can't.
Right. So I gave our friend Charles, who we also had brunch with today. It was his birthday last Sunday, so I gave it to him as a birthday present. And luckily, it's been freezing this weekend, so we got to wear it today.
Oh, did he? I didn't notice.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think because I yelled at him last time I saw him.
It's cold. Why are you not wearing your present?
So yeah, we wore it. I finished it. It was a real fun one to knit because, again, it was like 4 rows of stockinette and then 1 row of cabling and 1 row of setup cabling. So it had that right mix of like not paying it, just being able to sort of knit blindly, and then you had to pay attention for like a row and a half. It was really fun. I loved how it turned out. It blocked out beautifully. I loved the colors. Super happy, and I got it done in a month, which I'm very proud of, because that does not happen.
And the thing that blew my mind about it was that you Portuguese knit for 3 of the rows,
right?
Then you
So the way it worked, it was super fun because this is why I want to learn a continental knit, because it was really fun having the different options of knitting styles for different rows. So for the long, easy rows, I knitted inside out Portuguese knitting, so I was purling on the back side of the piece Portuguese knit, because that's really fast and really easy.
That's witchcraft. It doesn't make any sense.
And then for the setup rounds, I flipped it, and I'm actually just through for the cable rounds, because the way that Portuguese knitting goes, you're knitting on the front. I just sort of, I did the first time around, I was trying to do Portuguese knitting with the front cables, and
we should have done video of that.
Yeah, it made me want to kill. But
I mean of each style, of how you changed your style. We should, next time we'll do video.
Yeah,
of that.
But it was
that was really, I was like, what?
But it was really fun because it's like all the things you have in your toolkit, and I'm like, okay, I can see why like learning how to continental knit would be great, because there might be sometimes, like for color work, when I don't want to have like pins out of my chest for Portuguese knitting. Or like cabled color work, you might like throwing and continental might be easier. So it was super fun. I'm really happy it turned out. It was really fast. It was a great pattern. And I loved the way the yarn knit up. It was a pleasure to work with.
Yeah.
It's like a performance review. Meets expectations. Exceeds expectations.
So we will have put in pictures for that.
Yeah.
You also put it in the finished objects thread.
I did. And
I want people to know
it's
on the finished. We have a knit along going on, and we'll talk about more in a little bit. But he put it on the finished objects thread for that. Go ahead.
You're my model.
Oh right. I was looking awful. It was like a Sunday where I was like doing laundry.
He was like, "Don't show my face."
And like I just looked. I looked a mess, and so John used me as the model, but cut me off like right at my chin.
Right.
So all you see is the cowl. Yeah, so now I'm going to talk about my cowl that I'm working on. And what's funny is at least 1, maybe 2 other people have done the same cowl as for our cowl knit along. And it's the Valanar cowl by Elena Nodel. I'm assuming I'm pronouncing all that correctly. And I've talked about it before, but it's basically I'm going to call it a turtleneck top. It looks like the top of a turtleneck sweater, and then it goes down to like this, almost like a dickie or something, and it has cables on it. I'm planning to use it for when I go skiing. But, so here's what I've got. So,
Scott, have you ever done cable work before?
I have not done cable work before. So, I am obsessed with doing cables now. I want to put cables in everything. I want to do cable socks and cable sweaters and cable mittens. I want to cable everything.
Do you want to hold it? I guess you can see that.
Well, I'm going to put pictures in,
okay.
I think. So, but this yarn's amazing. It's Malabrigo Rios in the Cereza colorway. It's this beautiful red color, and it's got a lot of nicely woven in white cat hair.
As everything we do has. God forbid we give anything to Steve Dahl that we've knit. He will die. Our friend Steve is allergic to cats, and I'm worried if we ever give him anything we knit, it's going to kill him.
Yes. So anyway, I'm loving it. It's what's interesting.
And it's not an easy cable pattern. Like when I learned my cables, I did that like the super like simple cables, but these cables are, look at that. That's awesome.
Well, what's interesting about this pattern, I don't want to say the wrong thing. So it's got 2/2 left cables, 2/2 right cables, 2/2 left purl cables, 2/2 right purl cables, 2/3 left cables and right cables. And then it's got make one rights, make one lefts, make one purl rights, and make one purl lefts, which none of those things had I done before.
Right.
I think I'd done make one right, but I ended up like knitting through the front and back loop as an increase instead of doing a make one. Uh-oh. We have a
it's okay.
visitor. I know, but I want to... Come here, come visit. So,
speaking of getting cat hair and everything.
I know. So that's what we ended up...
Jesus. Like, if you're this, like...
It's like you couldn't...
Work your angles.
You couldn't get him to do that if we wanted to get him to do that. Okay.
Now look pensive. Now, yes.
Now look
find your light. Find your light.
Smize. Now look disinterested.
See, his ears are back. He's
his
totally
ears are like,
he's taking direction.
What are you guys talking about? Okay, so anyway, I had never done any of those things. I'm gonna have to.
Look what you did.
That cat. Okay, so should we pause it? Okay, Junior hates me and is never speaking to me again, but that's okay. So
he was here. The problem: if he was like sharing the spotlight, we'd be okay. But he was completely upstaging us.
Yes, he was. So now he's gonna go and chew up our blocking mats.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, it had all those things in it that I had never done before, and so I'm really excited.
I think it looks amazing.
One of the things that's interesting, I swatched for gauge and I met gauge. It calls for 16-inch needles and 24-inch needles. And
for when it gets bigger.
Yes, and I'm using what are they called? Interchangeables. But I started with 16-inch and it was too big, actually, when I was doing this, when I started the cables, and you had said that it gets tighter when you're doing cables, but so I'm actually down.
Oh, you couldn't stretch it when you did the cables, whereas with the rib, it was super stretchy.
I don't know. Anyway, It felt like it was too big. So anyway, I'm not going to talk about that anymore because I think I might actually be on 16s now, and I was on 24s before and it was too big. I don't remember. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about, since we've talked about your finished object and my work in progress. Let's talk about our knit along a little bit.
Okay.
So, or wait, you do your other, and then we'll talk about the knit along.
So here's the deal. If you hang on Ravelry Threads, you will find a pattern you want to do and do it. So I was innocently looking at the finished object thread, and if you look at my queue on Ravelry, I got obsessed with Mosaic knitting cowls for when I was looking at cowls to do. And so, but I obviously did the other one, the rhythm cowl. So I was in the chatter thread, and one of the participants, I think his name is Alcibiades, I can't remember, it's something Greek, mentioned that he was going to start a second cowl, and he said, I'm going to do this cowl. And I'm like, well, I'll just look that up. So he picked out this cowl. It's called the Tesserino cowl by Mary Chiba. And it's a free pattern that you get by registering on their site. But it's mosaic knitted, and I just started it, and I'm using two yarns. One is both copper corgi. This is called
copper corgi is an indie dyer that's
from Savannah,
in Savannah, Georgia.
That we
go ahead. Sorry.
That we when we went to the knitting retreat, we did a trunk show, and I picked up a lot of her yarn. And so these were two colors that I really liked. And I needed two colors that I thought went well together. So this one is sport weight out on the tiles, right here. And this is also sport weight, and it's called Trampled Underfoot.
That's her Ogechi Sport.
Ogechi Sport, yeah. And it is superwash merino, mill spun, hand dyed. I don't know anything else.
380 yards for 115 grams.
Right. So anyway,
wait, what did that say? Hand wash, mill spun, and hand dyed. Oh, I see. Okay.
So anyway, because it's a two-color, this pattern is a two-color thing, I went into our stash because I'm like, I'm going to responsibly resource the stuff for this. And basically pulled all the sport and worsted weight. This calls for worsted weight yarn. So I pulled all the sport and worsted weight off our stash and started putting them together. And ended up liking these two the best. So the issue was I had to... Because this is done for worsted weight, which apparently the pattern is written for worsted weight yarn, and this is sport weight yarn. So if I did the pattern as is, I would have ended up with a choker.
Yes.
So I swatched. I didn't block, but I just saw because it was a cowl. Who cares? And then I translated over. So this pattern calls to cast on 100 stitches, and I cast on 160 stitches.
What's the one in parentheses?
That's if you want to do. There's a infinity scarf version of this.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So anyway, I've translated the width, so I think it's about the right. So
and we're gonna put in pictures here.
Yeah. So it's pretty. And again, it's mosaic. And what I like about it is number one, mosaic knitting is.
Tell us a little. I don't quite know what that term means.
So it means it's this kind of you sort of this colorwork pattern.
Go ahead and show it to me, and then I'll put pictures.
So you get this colorwork pattern alternating two colors, and the way that you get the colors next to another one there is by slipping stitches up.
Okay.
So the repeats. So the repeats are you do a pattern that repeats, and then every couple of with two colors, and then you'll slip up a color from below row to connect it, basically. And so it makes...
I told John, every time I see him pull this project out, I'm like, I want to cast this on right now.
Yeah. And so it's just a way to do... it's a type of color work, I guess, but, you don't have floats, it's really easy, it's really fast, because all you're doing is slipping.
You do have floats. One thing is that you do have floats on the back. That's what those are.
Right, but they're not...
But they're not... They're different because they're not... I feel like it's easier than doing stranded color work.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because you're not the floats exist because you're slipping stitches.
Right, and you're
not having to hold that yarn and not make it too tight.
Right.
And,
well, you do have to make it too tight because you don't want it to. But it's with
pucker.
The pucker. But you're only using one yarn at a time. You're doing one row in the main or contrasting color, and then slipping from the row below from the other two colors. So super easy, super fast. I'm almost it calls.
Is it all knitting?
It's all knitting.
Okay.
Well, the bottom is garter stitch, but
okay.
And it's really fast. I will.
Is this the whole pattern?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just this one page.
Yeah, it's just a repeat. It's just do a pattern repeat.
This little small amount of information.
So
creates this awesome pattern.
Right, the pattern calls for 10 repeats. I'll probably do or 8 repeats, and this is 2.5 repeats right now.
And that's what,
that's about 2 inches. So I'll probably I'm gonna get it to 12 inches and see
that is so cool.
where I am.
I'm doing
cast off. It's really easy, it's super free. And what I love, and this is what makes it so fun, is these two colors, just beautiful together. And I don't know if you can really see it, but I don't know if it's the way she dyed it, but if you look, there are strands. Oh, you totally can't see this. But maybe you can see, there are strands.
I can put pictures in, too.
There are strands in each of the yarn that get really close to what the other one looks like, and then goes away. So, it's awesome. I love this yarn. It's a joy to knit with.
Yeah, the yarn is so soft.
So soft and wonderful, and I'm excited to see what it looks like full and block and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So mosaic knitting, one of those things I've always been interested in. Again, I was like, this is not going to work. Slipping stitches up, but it looks great. So this is my second cowl. And again, super, super fun. I'm very excited about it. It's just going to be really cool. Very cool. And yeah, again, thank you for Alcibiades. I'm pronouncing the name wrong. It's someone, I Googled it, and it's a guy from, like, Golden Age anthems. No, it's an actual person.
Oh, okay.
But I'm just not pronouncing it correctly.
And so the reason that we're showing off cowls is because of our knit-along. So we are doing a 2-month-long knit-along. Started on March 1st. It'll go to April 30th. And and why are we doing this knit-along, John?
Like this knit-along, or
why are we doing this specifically?
Because the CowlKAL is hilarious to say. CowlKAL.
So we have had some very generous people reach out to us and offer prizes. And I've talked about the prizes kind of, sort of, but I've not been very clear about that. And so I wanted, now that we're about halfway through with the knit-along, I wanted to clarify some things. Nobody has expressed frustration with that or anything like that. It's just that I know that I've not been clear. So Jessie from Dye Monkey Yarns, who I've been watching her podcast for a while, but I've been watching it pretty religiously as soon as it comes out now. I really like her podcast because she talks about stuff that I don't feel like other podcasters are talking a lot about, whether it's...
Was she the one who did the whole acrylic?
Yeah, she talked about the time and place for acrylic, and she's talked about kind of like treating one another with respect in the community, and she's done some dyeing demos, and like, I really like her podcast. Anyway, Dye Monkey Yarns, her, sorry, I get this backwards. Dye Monkey Yarns is her business, is her Etsy business. And I think she might have her own website as well. Knit Up and Dye is the podcast. DYE, Knit Up and Dye. So anyway, she was very generous, and she reached out to me and offered prizes. And that was what prompted us to start the knit-along. She is offering winner's choice of any of her patterns to 3 winners. After that happened, and after we'd started, either announced that we were going to do a knit, I don't remember, but Jennifer and John Michael from the Color and Life podcast, who I've watched some of their podcast as well, they reached out to me, and Jen did, and she offered, she's actually done cowl, 4 cowl patterns. So I jumped ahead a little bit. So for Jessie's offer, those are going to be random number generator. Sorry, we just got a
alert to give
our dog his heartworm pill.
Did it this morning.
It's right up on the screen. So I'm hoping it'll disappear. We're going to be pulling the prizes for the prizes of Jessie's patterns from our finished object thread using a random number generator. Then for Jen and John Michael from the Color and Life podcast, she is Genuine on Ravelry, JENNUINE. I wrote it down. Where did it go? Yeah, JENNUINE. And so she's giving away 1 copy of each of her cowl patterns to 4 winners. And so what she recommended, one of her recommendations, and I like it, is that was to use them as Instagram prizes. And that's not something I was familiar with or have done before, but to kind of get us, momentum through the second half of the knit-along, I thought that would be fun to do. Mm-hmm. So, okay, as John was just saying, and I was telling him I was cutting that part out, the Grady heartworm thing was like right across our faces.
Right.
So it was distracting. So Instagram prizes, what we're planning to do there is to get us just momentum through the second half of the knit-along is we're going to use the hashtag SweetTeaCowlKAL. And if you post something on Instagram, doesn't have to be your finished object order, but if you post on Instagram, and let me get this out or I'm going to lose my train of thought. Post that on Instagram and tag that post with the hashtag SweetTeaCowlKAL. Then we will draw winners from those posts. Now,
so
let me finish. So keep in mind, I don't want people that have posted using hashtag CowlKAL, because that was the hashtag that we had kind of put up on the screen and stuff in previous episodes.
But apparently
there are people who've already used that hashtag. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to find those that are pertinent or pertain to our knit along, and those will be included in the drawing for the 4 of Jen's cowl patterns. Now, please say what you were going to say.
It's just funny because I thought I was being so clever. Cowl. No one's ever thought of that before, and apparently they had.
Yes, other people. There was CowlKAL and CowlKAL 2017. There were both of those hashtags out there.
So, anyway.
So just to summarize, and we're not done yet. We've got one more prize, but just to summarize, Jessie, Knit Up and Dye Monkey Yarns. She was the first to reach out to me, and her prizes are going to be pulled from the Finished Objects thread. Jen's patterns from the Color and Life podcast, they're going to be pulled from the Instagram posts using SweetTeaCowlKAL. Or anyone who's posted using hashtag CowlKAL up to this point, because I don't want people to feel like, well, I would have known.
Yeah, we'll just do a anything.
And there aren't that many, so it's not like
basically anything in March.
Yeah, there's not that many to go back and dig through to find. So, and then the last prize that we talked a little bit about is a mug, a nice enamel mug that we got from Enamel.
Yeah.
But is that what it's made out of?
I think it's enamel. I think it's metal
like
enamel coated.
Enamel coated.
Yeah.
It's from the Fuzzy Goat.
And there's honey.
And there's Tupelo honey. There's the Fuzzy Goat is the store in Thomasville, Georgia, that hosted the first and only knitting retreat that we've been on, with Cadence as the owner. Fabulous store. I wish that we lived. Well, I mean, we can always go there when we ever visit my mom. But anyway, just a fabulous store. It's just, and they did such a cool thing where I know I've talked about this before, but they bought the strip mall that it's in, and they redid. I mean, it was in horrible shape, and the roof was collapsed, and it's just beautiful. So, anyway, that mug, we had talked about the fact that we were going to, from the finished objects, we were going to pick one that jumped out at us as one that motivated us to want to knit that pattern. And so we're going to, the one out of all of the finished objects that we both say, hey, we want to knit this pattern, then we will, that person will get the Fuzzy Goat mug and the Tupelo honey. So, speaking of that, I want to give Jessie another specific shout out, because she had mentioned that she did up a pattern, or did up a improvised cowl to enter in the knit along, or to participate in the knit along. I mean, she's given the prizes, so she probably doesn't want one of her own patterns. She was thinking about naming that cowl kind of in honor of our knit along in our podcast, so that's super exciting. So anyway, that's she said that in one of her recent episodes. So all right, so I think that's everything about the knit along. And at this point there are 32 finished objects out there, so that's really exciting to see how those in the chatter thread's been ongoing. And so, what else so I have one more thing to show, and you have one more thing to show.
Yes.
They're both socks, right?
Yes, and I think they're both the socks we showed last time, too.
That's okay.
Yeah.
We can show progress. So why don't you show us your sock?
So this is my sock. It's longer.
It is.
This is just a sock pattern that Scott made up basically for me. It's just got a 6x2 rib, The yarn is Parcel Tongue from Savvy Skeins. Cleverly dyed yarns, and it's 80% merino and 20% nylon. And this is my bus knitting. So I've started taking them to the bus and doing that while I'm going to work. And what I've discovered is, although I was initially not, I think the first thing I could do with the with 9-inch needles, which these are, was really kind of fiddly. I didn't like it, and now I'm kind of a believer in 9-inch needles. It knits up really nicely. I think what helps is the fact that I have a bit of fabric to hold on to. Because I feel like when I first tried doing them, I was basically casting on, and I was like, couldn't hold on to it. But now that there's something to hold on to while I'm doing it, it's great. So yeah, looking forward to. I don't know how much I have. It's maybe like 3 inches.
Yeah. Past
the rib. So just gonna keep on knitting on that until it gets done, and then that's that.
And you're gonna do an afterthought heel on this.
Yeah,
one, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So it's for John's first pair of socks, so it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
So weird. Okay, so let's talk about mine. So I showed. Oh no!
What
I
happened?
don't think I have it in here.
Oh, the finished one?
The finished one. It doesn't matter. I showed it last time. I have a finished sock. This is the second one. So this is the. What I'm doing is I did a 4x2. No, is that 4x4 or 4x2? 4x4 rib. For the top, and then I'm doing like an 18-inch leg, which I think is a little longer than I need. Probably going to do a 16-inch leg in the future, and then put the afterthought heel in. But the yarn is Moana. It's inspired by the movie Moana by Kate Celine, and I think I called her like Katie Celine like 90 times on last episode, and it's Kate Celine. And I don't remember where it was, but I had tagged her and she posted, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, a Moana sock in the wild." So that was kind of fun. But great yarn. I don't think I have the tag anymore. Oh wait, I do. So it's 25% nylon, 75% superwash. So it's great, and I just love the way it does the barber pole thing, and almost like self stripes. So yeah, so I knit on the train and the bus. I have to take both the bus and the train to get to work. And so I use that, or in the car or whatever. Or
like on the way to brunch today.
Yeah, like on the way to brunch. Or like if I just don't feel like knitting something complicated like cables. And speaking of cables, I just wanted to mention, oh crap, I don't remember where I bought these. I think I got them off of Jimmy Bean's Wool.
Yes, you did.
But these little wooden cable needles, oh my gosh. I'm trying to find somewhere you can see the little bend in them. I just love them. They're so pretty.
They are.
They're like just little wooden cable needles, and I love them.
Oh, can I show off something really quick?
Please do.
Okay. This is not knitting.
This is
embroidery.
Okay, time out. Okay, we gotta insert the dreaded embroidery segment into the podcast.
This is not. Anywho, this is oh my gosh, you are so mean to me. All I want to do is show my craft. So this is just practice stitches. I got a beginning embroidery book out of the library, just sort of practice size stitches, and these right here is like a. I can't remember what it's called. It's like a diagonal cross. This is me trying to figure out mattress stitch. This is hay stitch. Hey. And this is feather. So anyway, it's just sort of fun. And this I like this one. This is like a little sheath stitch, I think. I can't remember.
Which one is the feather stitch?
This is feather stitch going into mattress stitch.
Okay.
I think. So anyway, it's been really fun, and just practicing embroidery. But the reason I want to do this is that Betty Ann. So after hearing about my tragedy where I lost my knitting needle on the plane,
Oh wait, Betty Ann update. We got
Yeah, Betty Ann
Betty Ann update.
sent me this thing where it's a little magnet that holds your needles, and so what you can do is oh look, I'm knitting, and it holds the needle right there, so you don't have your needles going all over the place.
Where do you remember where she got those from?
The card's upstairs. I've got the card upstairs. I can't remember this. And while I just dump needles, so yeah, much easier. I also need to get a needle holder because right now my needles are just migrating off the Ziploc bag that I'm using for my needle kit. Anyway, embroidery fun. We're back.
We're back.
Are we?
Sorry, yeah. Anyway, getting the camera right. It's weird. So yeah, so you had taken an embroidery class with Matt.
Mm-hmm. And now I'm just practicing stitches.
Yeah. So is your goal to like do a project of like some kind, or you were gonna embroider our?
I'm gonna embroider our knitting bags.
Project bags.
Yeah, I mean, I think because I'm such a project knitter, and I'm just gonna be a project embroiderer.
I thought you were gonna say you were so capricious, but go ahead.
I think before I tackle a full embroidery project, it's going to be a little while. Yeah. Because I don't feel quite skilled enough to do it at this point. My stitches are a little janky. And I don't know what I'd do. So I'm going to terrorize all of our knitting bags and see what happens.
All right. So you talked about your sock.
Mm-hmm.
I talked about my sock, and then we're working on our cowls. Mm-hmm. We've got 14 other projects in progress, but we haven't worked on them.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do an episode a little more often, so that's why we brought this to you. But got a couple other things I wanted to talk about. One was a podcast that I just discovered, and I think she commented on one of our videos, or somehow I got connected with her name. Her name is Chevy Rell, and I'll put the information about her podcast in our comment section, or in the description section of our video. But I've watched, I think, one or two of her episodes, and it was really fun. She has great energy. She's really enthusiastic, and she's very much a knitting, fibery, podcast. But she does a lot of DIY stuff around her house. And so she's planning to talk about that. She's got a few episodes now, and she might talk about that, she said, in episodes. So that's... We've got a lot of things we want to do around our house. We just had a giant tree taken down, which we're super excited about because it was...
A black walnut that was evil.
For those of you who are not familiar with black walnut trees, they have some enzyme or something that poisons other plants. So it was giant. It was shading,
and they drop like 6 times a year.
Yeah, it drops in the spring. It drops in the fall.
It drops nuts.
It drops walnuts, and we never get in any of the walnuts because the squirrels eat all the walnuts.
Yeah,
and it was just, and it stains concrete, and
it's basically the worst tree
part
ever.
of it was dead. Like I think one of the limbs was dead, and it was rubbing on our roof, so it was damaging our roof, and. So anyway, we're excited because it's going to bring sunlight into the yard. I think we're going to put in an apple tree, or something. We're not sure yet, but
since we can't get a magnolia, which is what I really want.
John wants a magnolia tree, but we don't live in the South.
There's like one type of magnolia that will grow up here,
but it's not the gigantic.
No, it's with the big flowers the size.
Foot,
yeah, that's
with the gigantic white flowers the size of dinner plates.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Yeah, well. We're going to have to move south of the Mason.
No, we have to wait for the zones to shift up.
Global warming. We might be able to do magnolia trees.
Yeah.
Okay, the other thing is I'm going to actually do I don't know if demo is the right word. That sounds very official. But I'm going to do a little show and tell. It's something that I did not make up. It's something I observed on the Grocery Girls on their Craftsy show. But it's the way that I swatched for, and I talked about it last time, it's the way that I swatched for
the cowl?
The cowl. And I don't think Betty Ann had heard of it. So since Betty Ann had not heard of it, then other people might not have heard of it. So I'm going to do a little demo, and I'm going to insert that here. Hi everybody. I thought I would show this just because I thought this was the coolest thing ever. It's swatching without, or doing a swatch without, without purling. So if you've got a pattern that calls or that specifies the gauge in Stockinette, then you'll need to knit and then purl and then knit and then purl and then knit and then purl if you're knitting a swatch, a flat swatch. And I think I said this earlier, when I am starting a new project, the last thing I want to do is do a swatch, but I found that they're extremely important to make sure that the pattern measurements, especially if it's a fitted garment or something you're going to wear in general, that you're meeting the gauge that the pattern writer wrote the pattern in. So I saw this on a Craftsy show, and I thought I would show you guys the way that I did it. It's pretty easy, but I just thought it was really cool. So what I've done is I've cast on 15 or so stitches, and I used a long tail cast on, and so sorry, bear with me. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to knit across. So okay, so now I've gotten to the end of my row, and typically what I would do at this point is I would turn and purl back so that I'm creating all knit stitches on the front to create my stockinette swatch. However, what this technique calls for is you take, and I'm using circulars, I guess that's really, I mean, I guess you could do it on a giant double-pointed needle if that exists, but in this case I'm doing circular, so I'm going to push my stitches back down to the other needle, and I'm going to knit, but typically, so this is my tail, so typically you're like, well, you can't knit now because you're knitting your working yarn's on the other side, and what you do is you just basically bring it behind. Let me grab my needle here. You bring it behind and you just start knitting again. So you've got a giant float that goes all the way back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this over so you can see. I'm just going to bring it across my hand and I'm going to wrap it. So I brought it behind and I'm going to wrap it now, and I'm going to knit my first stitch. I don't know if you noticed there, I just pulled a little bit to make it even looser. It doesn't matter. I mean, you don't want it to be tight, but it doesn't actually really matter. So I'm now going to knit again. All right, now I'm going to, I'm back at the end again of my row, and now I've got 2 rows of knit stitches. So I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to push my stitches, or, push my stitches. Technically I'm pulling my needle through my stitches, but I'm going to push my stitches back down to the other end, the other needle, and I'm going to do the same exact thing where I grab the yarn and I bring it, and I've kind of used my hand as a way to keep it loose. I'm going to grab my needle, I keep forgetting that step, and I'm going to bring it on top of the yarn, and I'm going to knit. I'm going to pull it a little bit so it's not so tight, and I'm going to knit again. Okay, you can see what I've done here is I've completed several rows, and I went ahead and bound off, and so I bound off the same way, where I brought the yarn around the back and did my typical bind off. And so I've got my little swatch of stockinette. Obviously this swatch is way too small to use for a real project, but it was just for demonstration purposes. And one thing that I found doing this is that the stitches on the edge are a little strange because they're kind of loose because you're doing those giant floats. And as you can see, I've got here the giant floats on the back. So what you can do now is, you're going to want to wash it and block it before you measure the stitches for your swatch. So what I've seen recommended and what I've done is you cut these floats so that they don't cause the fabric to pucker if they're too tight or whatever. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my floats here and I'm just going to cut them. And they now they unfold and you've got your stockinette and you can trim your tail and stuff, but you've got your little stockinette swatch and you can wash it and block it and you're good to go. Now, one thing about this, it feels a little uneasy, makes me a little uneasy that these floats are just hanging out here, but you're really just using it to measure, and your swatch should be much wider than mine is when you're normally doing it. I'm going to show you one that I did for my cowl project. And here's the one I did for my cowl project. It's washed and I blocked it, and you see the same thing. It's got the the edges that I cut, but because it's so much longer, or wider I should say, I had plenty of room to measure my stockinette. So this is actually the second swatch I had to do for this project, because the first time I did it I did not meet gauge, wasn't close. And so what was such a relief was doing this and not having to, I just have this little patch of stockinette I have to do without having to purl every other row. So I don't know, I just thought you guys might find it interesting and helpful, and plus it was fun to do my first demo, so I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks. So hopefully that was interesting to one or two people, but that's the way that I created these swatches, and I don't care for purling when I'm trying to get because when I'm doing a swatch, it's like
I want to get it done.
I know, it's hard enough to force myself to do the swatch, and let alone having to do a bunch of purling.
Well, and then finding out that you have to redo another swatch.
Yeah.
I have literally done swatches where I'm like, well, this is probably wrong, but it's close enough, so... Yeah.
Or I've done them where it's like 2 rows.
Right.
That's not really a swatch. I mean, this is kind of small for a swatch too, but whatever.
Yeah, no, I can't. My swatches are super small. They always say their gauge was like 4 inches. I do 2, maybe. Because I'm like, swatching makes me want to not do the project.
Yes.
Even though it's very important.
Yes. And then there was another topic that I wanted to talk about, but I'm not ready to talk about it yet because I don't have the information I need about it. So I think the last thing I was going to just add as another, because we're trying out different segments to see how people like we are. Okay, let's talk about the baking segment that never happened. So, baking segment that never happened. People seemed real interested in that, and I am going to do that. And I think that, having watched Jessie from the Dye Monkey Yarns, when she does dyeing demonstrations, I can kind of tell how she's doing that. And I think I could translate some of what she's doing to doing a baking segment. Because I don't want you to be trapped holding a camera while I'm making a cake or something,
Yeah.
So, I think I've got some ideas with that. Part of it is I've been trying to eat healthier, and so I've not been
baking with the same
every day. But I did bake a cake for our friend Charles' birthday, the one that John gave the cowl to, and so I'm going to insert a picture of that here. But I'll put the information to the recipe down below. But it was really, really fun to do that. It was a ombre style cake where it starts with a light color and then it gradually gets darker and darker pink as the layers go down. Pardon me. And that was a really fun cake to make. And so I'll put the recipe information in there. But then I thought in the future we might talk about like books we're reading or TV that we're watching or something like that. So I didn't really prep you for that right now. We'll do that in a future episode. But
we'll do a little book report.
Book report, yeah. So anyway, well, I hope you've enjoyed our little bit. I think it'll probably be a little bit shorter episode, and
we'll probably do one in 2 weeks after the shop hop. And
yeah, the shop hop I think will be the episode. Right, but
we'll post it in 2 weeks because we'll be taking all the stuff and yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Appreciate it.
Happy Easter-ish.
Keep waiting, keep smiling. Real smile, not fake smile. Bye.